derrito y hoy me muero, me muero, me muero.
Mira, gigantes. ¡Qué gigantes! ¡Son molinos!
Goeiedag, bonjour, buenos dias, good morning. In the three official languages of the Kingdom of Belgium and in the official and co-official languages of the Kingdom of Spain, welcome, bienvenue, willkommen, benvidos, benvidas, bienvenidas, bienvenidos, benvingudas, benvinguts, ongi etorri. Welcome to the webinar, Art, Heritage and Diplomacy, Belgium and Spain, a case study, on the occasion of the 100th anniversary of our embassies, 1921-2021. Art and heritage in the official diplomatic representations in Madrid and Brussels. We are live streaming from the official residence of the Embassy of Belgium in Madrid, el Palacete del Marqués de Rafal, and from the official residence of the Embassy of Spain in Belgium, Residence Ambassador Marqués of Villalobar, from which I'm speaking to you. My name is Sergi Farré. I'm the Cultural and Scientific Counselor of the Embassy of Spain to the Kingdom of Belgium. You'll be able to follow us also on the chat of Zoom. You can drop your questions when you're ready, because we know not everybody has the same schedule. We will save some time at the end and after each speaker's intervention, but you can, as of now, drop any comments that we'll be able to see for the speakers, for the moderator, myself, who will be with you throughout the webinar. And if you need more information, if you want to have, we didn't want to bombard you too much on the Zoom, you can go, they will drop it now on the Zoom, to the cultural website of the Embassy of Spain in Belgium, spainculture.be. There is a website where you can download the detailed program and also the bios, the biographies of each of the speakers. We are very happy to have you with us. We have over 200 participants registered, so we're very thankful and very happy about this. We were a bit delayed precisely because we had to let in everyone before we started. And now, without further ado, and Ambassador, you can accompany me if you will. We will together, on your behalf, Ambassador, ask Luis Cuesta Cibis, who is Subsecretario under Secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, European Union and Cooperation of Spain, who is now at the Belgian residence in Madrid, to please take the floor and inaugurate this webinar. Bienvenido, Subsecretario. Un honor tenerle con nosotros. Gracias.
Ms. Theodora Gensis, President of the Board of Directors of the Federal Public Service of Foreign Affairs, Foreign Trade and Development Cooperation of Belgium, Ambassador Gerard Cox, dear friends, good morning, and thank you for your kind invitation, for your hospitality and assistance in organizing this webinar on art, heritage, and diplomacy, Belgium and Spain, a case study, which will be hosted in both cities, promoted and organized by the Embassy of the Kingdom of Belgium in Madrid and the Embassy of the Kingdom of Spain in Brussels, in commemoration of the establishment of full diplomatic relations between our two countries in 1921, when our diplomatic missions were raised to the rank of embassies. Entering this palace, which once belonged to the Marqués de Rafal, the Marquis of Rafal, and has been the home of the Embassy of Belgium for 70 years now.
Te cuelgo porque ya oigo aquí y si no me lío.
Immediately transports us back to that time when our two countries, bound by centuries of shared history, embarked upon a bilateral relationship that has brought us even closer, up to the construction of the European space in which we now live. This building meets the standards of what was understood as high architecture in the early 20th century, or what is commonly referred to in contemporary historiography as the dying embers of a protracted 19th century, which came to a violent end with the collective tragedy of the Great War. An eclectic French-style architecture was prevalent in the 19th century expansions of our cities. Cartier Leopold, where the Spanish embassy in Brussels is located, or Barrio Salamanca in Madrid, where we are today. Space enjoys a special relationship with time. Buildings somehow have the capacity to freeze the different moments of the lives that take place in and around them, and to reflect, as in a projection, the successive moods and desires of the society that inhabits them and which remain hidden within them. In its countless alveoli, space contains compressed time, says Bachelard. And in 1919, when this palace was built, we were, as we are now, emerging from a pandemic, which, given that the times were less inclined to political correctness, was called, unfairly, as is now well known, the Spanish flu. This sorrowful circumstance, perhaps minimized in comparison with what humanity had just brought upon itself, was forgotten and disappeared from the spotlight until the archaeology of memory recently unearthed it. This gave way to the Roaring Twenties, which, in the field of architecture and the arts, are linked to the triumph of hygienist principles and the liberation of the arts deriving from multiple approaches. Among them, Brussels' remarkable Art Nouveau, which, having started a few decades earlier, would go on to shape the modern movement that gave way to contemporaneity. Today, COVID-19 has helped us take a giant step forward towards the digital transformation of our societies, making it natural to hold an event like this remotely in two cities and for a worldwide audience. The hope-filled lesson is that humankind can always find positive outcomes when responding to difficulties and reversals of fortune. Architecture, such as that we are enjoying this morning, often becomes linked everywhere to diplomatic activity, one of the few pillars thanks to which such buildings have been able to survive in predatory capitalist societies. And this is because there is a certain tradition linking the heritage value of the buildings in which diplomatic missions are housed with the reputation, image, and prestige of their country. However, as recalled in the introduction to the volume published on the occasion of this seminar, unlike other areas, the current perception of a country's image abroad and among its own citizens does not flow from the more or less palatial look of its public buildings, but from other factors. Its identity as a modern, innovative country that fosters talent, the economic and social well-being of its people, the capabilities and skills of its companies and professionals, its respect for public and individual freedoms, the proper democratic actions of public authorities, or the up-to-date efficiency of its administration in providing services. We are convinced that Spain's image does not depend as much on the places where the chancelleries of the embassies are located, but on the activities that originate in them. Nevertheless, it is most appropriate, and I would dare say necessary, to take stock of and publicize the extraordinary valuable buildings we have in many cities, as well as the heritage-related and historical values of the treasures they contain, all of which aim to promote a positive image of our country to the rest of the world and to foster, in our case, knowledge about our diverse cultures, in the firm conviction that Spain's historical heritage is the main witness to Spaniards' contribution to world civilization, not to mention their creative capacity today. For all these reasons, I am pleased to inaugurate this webinar together with my Belgian colleagues and express my heartfelt gratitude to the renowned specialists in each of the areas to be covered who are participating in the webinar for their collaboration. And obviously, to the diplomatic staff and other Belgian and Spanish staff represented by the ambassadors of both countries, Ambassador Gerard Cox, Ambassador Beatriz La Rocha, who are to be credited with all the merit for the result achieved and for the benefits which will undoubtedly be garnered as a consequence of this collaboration. Thank you for the effort made to showcase the brilliant past of our respective countries, but also, above all, for doing so from a forward-looking perspective. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Undersecretary, Subsecretario. I'm taking this opportunity to communicating with our colleagues in Madrid because we're getting messages that the sound sometimes is not clear, just in case you want to check. And now, without further ado, also to inaugurate this webinar, we have the honor to have here with us Ms. Teodora Gentzis, who is the president of the board of directors at interim of the Federal Public Service of Foreign Affairs, Foreign Trade and Development Cooperation of the Kingdom of Belgium. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, dear Luis. On the occasion of the 100th anniversary of our bilateral embassies, it's a real pleasure for me to take the floor in the official residence of Spain in Brussels. Thank you, Ambassador, for having me here today. 100 years ago, the Spanish legation was elevated to the rank of embassy. Mr. Rodrigo de Saavedra and Vinent, second Marqués of Villalobar, became thus the first Spanish ambassador in Belgium. His consistent efforts to mitigate the impact of the Great World War on the population earned him a special place in the hearts of the Belgian people. Around the same time, the Belgian legation in Spain, too, was elevated to the rank of embassy. This webinar, marking this century, is a clear sign of the healthy and excellent relations between Belgium and Spain. Throughout our common history, art has played a major role in strengthening the diplomatic and economic ties between Belgium and Spain. As a result, both our countries share a very rich artistic heritage that it's worth preserving and promoting. The fact that Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs, Sophie Wilmès, is also in charge of the federal cultural institutions of Belgium is a clear sign of the important role arts keeps on playing even today in our political, economic, and diplomatic relations. Furthermore, as head of the Belgian Federal Public Service, I'm very conscious of the values we share within Europe. One of the main tasks of our diplomacy abroad consists in defending those core values. We said it previously during our bilateral contacts, Beatrice. This is very important for our ministry. Our artistic heritage represents, in this context, besides an enriching experience in itself, of course, a major asset for promoting our history and heritage, and would I dare to say, a way of life. It is therefore to be applauded that our embassies and residencies abroad maintain this tradition by opening their doors further to young artists through a strengthened collaboration with both the academic world and the private sector. This autumn, the ambassador's residence in Madrid will, as it's now a tradition, open its door once again to the general public. The Spanish residence, for its part, will this week take part in the Brussels Heritage Days. The virtual tours of our residences to be presenting during this webinar is another way to bring our heritage closer to the public. Remains me to wish you an interesting webinar and thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Madam. And now, after the inauguration of the webinar, we're going to go deep into the entrails, as it were, of both ministries and of foreign affairs. And we're going to talk to the art and heritage curators who are responsible for the policies and the good practices that allow us to be here today and to display all this wonderful art. We have with us in Madrid Ramon Abadal, who is the head of area at the Deputy Directorate General for Heritage at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, European Union and Cooperation of Spain. And Ramon, I would like to, if I may, as a colleague of yours and as a long-standing career diplomat, please tell us about your perspective on heritage and cultural diplomacy. Thank you for being with us, Ramon, and you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergi. Good morning, Undersecretary, Ambassadors, Excellencies, and everybody participating in this webinar. The question is, why should a Ministry of Foreign Affairs have an art collection? Well, corporations, banks, big firms, individuals, and above all states share a passion for collecting what is considered the best in fine art. Its origins are in the beginning of civilization. When one has the means, acquiring art is an unquestionable option either for prestige, pleasing the senses, helping the artist, or as a mere investment. One of the main goals of diplomacy is letting people know the reality of the country represented, and anything related to culture has to do that. It is called cultural diplomacy. Not only fine art, but also design, gastronomy, crafts, literature, music, in short, all art contribute to shape the image of nations. In this case, we're answering a very concrete question. Why an art collection? Many reasons come to my mind. Firstly, it has been a tradition in embassies since their appearance. Ambassadors used to take with them pieces of the private collections to the country they represented. Later on, embassies, as a projection of the country they belong to, have been furnished with important pieces of fine furniture, carpets, tapestries, silver, porcelain, paintings, and sculptures. It has been a matter of prestige as well as the promotion of the national art. I would like to underline that cultural dialogue is vital for the mutual understanding of nations and permanent art collections, displayed both at the premises of the Ministries of Foreign Affairs and our embassies, as well as temporary exhibitions held with the help of our museums, art galleries, and private collectors do play a very important role in diplomacy. Even more so in the case of countries such as Belgium and Spain, with a really fascinating art history and a vibrant art scene. Big amounts of all kinds of people that visit our residences, chancelleries, and consulates make them excellent showcases for artworks. Even in this globalized world in which the web covers almost every field and often replaces reality, the art market keeps growing. Relatives in new countries make huge investments, build museums, and get important art loans from Western institutions, with the certainty that the effort will be highly profitable. We are very fortunate in Spain. In the field of cultural diplomacy, not many countries can have access to such varied and brilliant contributions to art history. Not just that, but we have magnificent premises to display our art collection. Some of our embassies are historical buildings that can be considered as masterpieces in themselves. The Spanish Ministry of Foreign Affairs art collection is a very eclectic one. Apart from the important paintings belonging to the 17th century, our golden age, there is a big number of good examples of 18th and 19th century art, usually in our historical embassies such as the one in Brussels. Our collection is complemented by many important loans, mainly from the Museo del Prado, Patrimonio Nacional, and Museo Reina Sofía. It includes works by some of the best artists from the 16th century onwards. As for contemporary art, the collection of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has examples of some of the big names in the last 70 years, such as Sicilia, Miró, Tapies, Cerf, Villalobar, Canogar, etc. In my view, it is important to include artworks produced in the last two generations in our embassies, and mix it correctly with existing pieces from other centuries, giving a fresher atmosphere to the interiors. It is also a way of helping the present art market. By acquiring art and displaying it in our embassies, we're helping our artists get an international projection, which is often hard for them to have. The successful United States program, Art in Embassies, is a good example of what can be done in a big scale with sufficient funds and an established organization that channels private contributions and state purchases to showcase American art and works that connect it to other cultures. I do believe in the need of having a Ministry of Foreign Affairs art collection that shows, apart from fine historical pieces, a wide example of what is produced today in Spain. It is one of the best ways to practice soft diplomacy. and it proved to be a really rewarding one. Hopefully, the trend will be to reinforce it with the invaluable help of all the institutions involved. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you so much, dear Ramon. We will move on and then we'll save some. Please stand by, Ramon and all speakers, because we'll collect questions and come back to you later. Now I have the honor also to introduce Maria Garcia Rivero, who is the Art and Heritage Curator at the same department as Ramon at the Spanish MFA. And I would like to ask you, Maria, let's start right off the bat. Please tell us about your perspective. We heard from a diplomat. Now we want to hear from an actual art curator who is working within Ministry of Foreign Affairs with diplomats and embassies. Tell us, please, about your work. What does it consist of? Tell us about it. Thank you so much.
Good morning, ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen. It is a pleasure to be here talking about art conservation and restoration at the Spanish Embassy in Belgium. Other speakers will discuss the art collection itself. I will just note that some of our most prestigious pieces are loaned from these distinguished institutions: the Museo Nacional del Prado, the Museo Nacional Centro de Arte Reina Sofía, and Patrimonio Nacional, all of which show how powerful Spanish art is. Now, let's move on to the main idea: the importance of taking care of preservation and the restoration of these art collections. The continuous care and supervision of artwork is essential so that our legacy survives in future generations. In fact, in Article 46 of the Spanish Constitution, the duty to protect our cultural heritage is set out. Curators are experts in the necessary preventive care of the collections, as well as in restoring damaged artwork. As you can imagine, art conservation is different in a museum than in an embassy. The museum pieces are always protected from inadequate temperature and humidity, as well as excessive light and damage caused by human contact. Our heritage collection houses in embassies are present in all aspects of life, both in the privacy of the residents and the public environment of the chancellery. Tapestries, rugs, furniture and paintings are often part of daily life and brighten all the events. When an event is held, seats that are in a public area exposed to bright light, temperature change, smoke, or accidents can easily be damaged. This can be prevented with a little extra care, however. The preventive conservation of the art collections is a priority in all embassies. Both preventive conservation and restoration projects must follow strict guidelines. Pieces on loan from institutions come with their own contracts that specify how should be careful. To address this, the area of cultural heritage has created a basic guide on preventive conservation for Spanish embassies and consulates. It provides basic instructions on collection care, while it also explains the vital necessity for conservation. Because of the pandemic, special procedures were also implemented in all embassies to ensure that collections around the world were not damaged by new cleaning methods and products that could have harmed them terribly. I'm pleased to say that none of our artwork was damaged. The Spanish Embassy in Belgium is one of the best examples of Spanish culture abroad, and it holds many important works of art. The embassy is a carefully designed environment for day-to-day diplomatic affairs and a meeting point for unique special events. Of course, the embassy has established a thorough heritage restoration plan. Although the main objective is always conservation rather than restoration, naturally, if it's necessary, restoration must be done at the workshops of the embassy or at the leading institutions. In short, the embassy in Brussels, one of the most significant representations of the Kingdom of Spain, has a set of historical and artistic pieces, giving it unique identity. All thanks to the identified of the experts, and the collaboration of the embassy staff to take care of our heritage with so much love and attention. Thank you very much for your attention and enjoy the cultural heritage in the Spanish Embassy in Belgium.
Thank you so much, Maria. And now we're traveling back to Brussels, back to the residence Embajador Marqués de Villalobar. And I have the pleasure of introducing now Maria's counterpart here in Belgium, Ilse Douwe, who is the Art and Heritage Curator at the Federal Public Service Foreign Affairs. And Ilse, before I leave the podium, the big question, why should a Ministry of Foreign Affairs have an art collection? Thank you for being here. Please.
Thank you, Sergi, for this question. And as the curator of such a collection, this presentation will, of course, be a plea in favor of the usefulness and necessity of an art collection in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I would like to talk about the history and the characteristics of the collection of the Belgian Ministry, its mission, the art policy and collection management, and the role of art in the Belgian diplomacy. I will illustrate this with some specific examples and visuals. So let's start with the history of the collection. The collection is built since 1830 with the constitution of the country, and mainly after the Second World War in the 1950s, when most diplomatic postings opened. Nowadays, the collection is spread around the globe in about 250 buildings. The collection consists of tapestries, paintings, sculptures, works on paper, and more recently also photography, video, and in situ works, commissions. The collection contains purchases, donations, loans since the beginning until now. We have several partners, such as the French and Flemish community and museums as the Royal Museums of Fine Arts of Belgium in Brussels. You can imagine that a variety of geographical and cultural contexts with a diversity of climate, security levels, and public request a specific collection management. The four main tasks of collection management, digitalization, conservation and restoration, collecting and presenting, are translated and adapted to the needs of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The works are on view in two types of buildings, in the official residences and in the embassies. In the first type, the ambassador fulfills representative functions and he or she also lives there, with or without a family. The second type is an office building. The mission of art in the context of the Belgian diplomacy can be described as art as an ambassador, art as a conversation piece, art as an invitation to dialogue and to discuss. Model examples of artworks as ambassadors in Spain are the antique tapestries, the so-called fresks of the North, and the figure of Peter Paul Rubens as artist and diplomat. According to British studies in Geneva, the impact of small exhibitions and concerts in the residences of the diplomats should not be underestimated in diplomatic negotiations. Belgian diplomats are known on the European and international diplomatic stage for their search for common ground, as bridge builders and deliverers of creative solutions. Diplomatic postings can be seen as crossroads of cultures. Artworks can be forms of cultural diplomacy in a reciprocal way. They can be a representation of the country, and they can help to build bridges with the host country. That's why we like to show work of contemporary Belgian and local artists. Through a variety of artworks with several points of view, a space is created where values as respect, openness, discussion, understanding, and trust count. These values are important in a democracy. Artworks can provide a diverse and contemporary image of a country, and they can improve the credibility of the country as a professional and reliable partner. Through a little wink, a certain topic, a valuable reference, an artwork can evoke a smile, can figure as an icebreaker, open up a discussion. People, visitors, and employees can feel welcome, connected, respected. One's curiosity can be triggered to explore and discover more. The diplomatic postings abroad and in the headquarters in Brussels should be considered as dynamic spaces to visit, to work, and/or to live. The realized projects, the so-called curated embassies, stay for a while as they were conceptualized. But there is also quite a lot of collection mobility. The artworks in the residence of Madrid arrived, for example, at different moments. The loans from the RMFAB with the works after Rubens were installed in the 1950s. The portraits from Miereveld joined in the 1970s. Patrician Woman, attributed to Miereveld, was added in 2014, after a stay in Rabat and a little stop for restoration in Brussels. The tapestry, Message to Cyrus' Mother, hangs in the staircase since 2013. This tapestry used to be exhibited in Tokyo, where it was formerly known as Daido and Aeneas. Some people might wonder if this kind of artworks from the 17th century are still appealing today. At first sight, these artworks might be a little far away from our daily life, but some stories are still accurate in the 21st century. The historical figure of Cyrus the Great, for example, which is present in the tapestry Message to Cyrus' Mother, is worth to take a closer look at. Cyrus the Great refers to the Persian king Cyrus II, who lived in the 6th century BC. This king of the four corners of the world ruled the state with different nationalities and faiths with pluralism and tolerance. To be able to do so, he created a charter, the so-called Cyrus Cylinder, which is known as the oldest declaration of human rights, more specifically about the rights of communities. A replica of the cylinder was offered by the sister of the Shah of Iran to the UN in New York in 1971. She said, "The heritage of Cyrus is the heritage of human understanding, tolerance, courage, compassion, and, above all, human liberty." Several tapestries series about this historical figure are woven, mainly in the 16th and 17th century in Flanders and Brussels, and some of them are part of the Spanish public collections. A precious series of 10 tapestries, probably commissioned by the Spanish king Philip II, is now part of the Patrimonio Nacional of Spain. A tapestry entitled Cyrus Captivated Astygius, woven in Brussels in 1635, is mentioned in a publication of the Patrimonio Nacional of Spain in 1986. At that time, it was exhibited in the Spanish Embassy in Rome. This tapestry has a similar board as the one in the Belgian official residence in Madrid, so probably it is from the same series. I believe these references are still appealing today and can be a source of inspiration and conversation. The Belgian Ministry also enriches its collection with contemporary art. The Ministry organizes temporary exhibitions, like the summer exhibitions in the Egmont Palace in Brussels, such as Art and Diplomacy in 2019, and the currently running exhibition in the official residence in The Hague. Not a pure money issue, is a collaboration between the Nederlandse Bank and the National Bank of Belgium. You can find the publication on our website in the Dutch version. In the embassy in Madrid is a contemporary art collection since 2013. The embassy is a floor in a building from 1968 at the Paseo de la Castellana, the administrative heart of the Spanish capital. The floor is the property of the Belgian state since 1972, and it needed renovation to correspond to the needs of today. The art collection was put together around the theme of traveling, including tourism and migration. There is an artwork entitled In Spain by Pierre Alechinsky, a work Open Letters by conceptual artist Marcel Broodaerts. There is a lightbox Exodus by Philip Aguirre. There is a series of 3 photographs, Alterscape 1, 2, 3, by Ottobong and Kanga, and there are 2 drawings by Rinus van der Velde. Spanish visitors might be acquainted with Rinus' work, as it was exhibited several times at the Arco Art Fair. "Nice to meet you," says Rinus in one of his works. I would like to end by saying, "Nice to meet you." Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Sergi and Ambassador, and all the colleagues in Madrid and Brussels for the wonderful collaboration. Gracias.
Hartelijk bedankt, dank u. Thank you so much, Ilse. And now we are setting on the third part of this webinar, which is Heritage and Art on Loan in Diplomatic Missions. Now, so far, we've stayed within the realm of Ministries of Foreign Affairs. Now, we're going to have a dialogue with the actual curators in museums, and we are going to try to answer this main question: if embassies are a window of opportunity, can be a window of opportunity for museums, the official residence, chancelleries, etc. In fact, as you have perhaps observed, both the main backdrops here in Brussels and in Madrid are loans from museums, or in the case of Brussels, if I'm not mistaken, please correct me, I think it's the Rede van Antwerpen by the aankomst van Maria de Medici and van de Infante Isabella. It's the roadstead of Antwerp upon the arrival of Maria de Medici and Infanta Isabella on September the 4th, 1631. That's the backdrop you see when our colleagues are speaking from the Belgian residence in Madrid. And in our case, about a century later, so in the first case, in the Belgian case, and the professor will correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's a loan from the Royal Museums of Fine Arts of Belgium here in Brussels. And to my back, you will see this wonderful tapestry, este tapiz de la Real Fábrica de Tapices de Santa Bárbara, which bespeak as this very intertwined relation between Flanders, Belgium, and Spain. And it was made under the direction of Francisco van der Goten, following a model by Ramon Vallejo in the 18th century. It's called the Hunting of the Deer. So without further ado, I would like to introduce, we have the honor to have with us Dr. Joost van der Auwera, who is the senior curator at the Old Masters Department at the Royal Museums of Fine Arts of Belgium in Brussels. Sir, it's such an honor to have you here. Please.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear participants to this webinar, I'm very fortunate and thankful to be invited here to give you some insight in the approach of the Royal Museums of Fine Arts of Belgium in Brussels to art and diplomacy. And we have a rather long-standing tradition because since many decades we have some 775 long-term loans to several embassies, but also residences abroad, and also with some ministers' cabinets. And I have to say, everything evolves, the international domain, diplomacy, but also art history. And I have to say, we are becoming more and more selective, but also, I think, maybe more functional, because art history is far more severe now than before in permitting loans. We also have, of course, a policy at our own museum. And if I may have the next one, yes. Here we see one of the paintings, a couple, two pendants in our museum, which refers directly to diplomacy. It are the governors of the Spanish Netherlands in the time of Rubens, which is Archduke Albrecht and Archduchess Infanta Isabella. And they were specially made under the aegis, under the control of Rubens, for the joyous entry in Antwerp of the Cardinal Infant, who represented the King of Spain. And it is diplomatic because at such instance it's festive, but it's also to establish the privileges and the obligations of both the city of Antwerp at one side and the sovereign of Spain on the other side. So it's a purely diplomatic sort of painting. And it was put on an arch 20 meters high, where then the whole cortege of the Infant Ferdinand came through. May I have the next one? This is also a very diplomatic painting by Rubens, who himself was a diplomat. He was an ambassador for the Infanta Isabella at the court of Spain to establish or promote a peace between Spain and England. And it was made for banqueting hall, which was the sort of reception hall, still existent, a ceiling painting, and it represents the father of the King, Charles I, who ordered it. namely James I, also very well known for the King James Bible. And he lived in a very difficult diplomatic situation. He represented the personal union of Scotland and England, but also he has to live with tensions within the country between Protestants and Catholics. His mother was Catholic, he was raised Catholic, then he was taken back from his mother, raised then Protestant. And you see that it is about wisdom victorious over war and discord. So war and discord were always looming, and then it exploded with his successor Charles I, who at the end was executed under the direction of Cromwell. Here we have the King Philip IV, who reigned from 1621 to 1665 with his spouse. And he was not only, of course, very much involved in diplomacy because it was a very difficult period of war, but also in art. And he was one of the great promoters and patrons of Rubens. And he visited his studio when Rubens was on diplomatic mission in Spain, in Madrid in 1628 and 29. And to your right-hand side, you have the Infant Ferdinand, his brother, who was representing the king, as said, in these other paintings in the Spanish Netherlands, but also have to lead the army and had a major victory in 1638 in Callao, pushing back the Dutch Republic. And at the end of all these diplomatic moves, peace was concluded in Münster and Westphalen in 1648. May I have the next one? And of course, war was raging and diplomatic moves were very important, and it was the first time that there was a big international diplomatic treaties. That was 1648, where the Netherlands got their independence from Spain, and also afterwards then with France some years later. But you see there to the right hand in the residence in Spain of the Belgian ambassador, a battle scene. So battle scenes were very prominent at that time, and so diplomacy has to make its very best to prevent them, and they succeeded at the end after 8 years of war in 1648. So it was really, really useful that diplomacy took its part in this tense period. May I have the next one? So that's a painting that has been already discussed in passing. It's also very diplomatic because there was a big fight between Maria de' Medici and her son Louis XIII of France, who expelled his mother, and then she was received with great hospitality in Brussels by the Infanta Isabella, and they came in with a boat from Vilvoorde, and in fact they were received at the other side of the River Scheldt, but they receive here the salute from the ships, because it's a very prestigious event that Maria de' Medici is arriving in Antwerp with the Infanta, and so you see the smoke of the cannons which give the salute to these very high-end visitors. And so to reconcile mother and son, one of the great ventures was then the Medici series, which was made by Peter Paul Rubens for the Palais de Luxembourg, and which is now in the Louvre. May I have the next one? So what you see in the middle, in the center there, is the Boyschot. He was not only the highest civil functionary in the Spanish Netherlands, Chancellor of Brabant, but he was also a diplomat and was an envoy by Infanta Isabella to the court in England. And he was the man who could still live up till the Peace of Westphalen in 1648, and he is seconded, so to say, on both sides, of course, by the portraits you already have seen of Philip IV, King of Spain, and of his spouse. So you see that all of these paintings, maybe they are reduced in number, they all are very specifically focused, and they have both an artistic and diplomatic sense. May I have the next? So the Boyschot also, here in a portrait after Van Dyck, was a patron of one of the most famous paintings by Sir Anthony Van Dyck, which is still in situ in the church of Zaventem, because he was the seigneur or the lord of Zaventem. May I have the next one? Yes, I don't think that is the next one. Yes, that's right. So But there's also a very specific non-artistic role of art in the residences and in the different diplomatic posts. And this is a painting that was reluctantly given back, so to say, by the ambassador of Belgium in Madrid, because every loan is under a contract, and if we need the loan because it still remains in the possession of the museum for an exhibition, then we have to take it back. This was for an exhibition of Albrecht and Isabella. And the ambassador said, this is one of the most functional paintings that we have in the residence because it de-stresses all sorts of conversations. It's very cute. It is the dog keeper of the Infanta Isabella. It's completely historical. Her name is known, Doña Juana Lunar. And if you take the next slide, all of the dogs have their name on it, and also some are naughty and less naughty, or they refer to their appearance. So Floretta, Orlandillo, Piramo el Bianco, Fidela. And he said if they had a tense conversation, then we walked with the invitee to this painting and tension went down immediately. He says this is a very diplomatic painting, although you would not see that at first. Nevertheless, we have to take into considerations that there are new topics that are really concern society nowadays. We have seen that in modern art at the residence, there is already some reference to it, like things like Black Lives Matters. In the museum, we will now install a complete room about this painting, which was the subject of a lot of dispute because Belgium had a colony of the Congo, of course, and this is painted by Rubens. It was called Heads of a Negro, and so all these sorts of denominations make great tensions. So we have to take into account, if we focus on bringing artworks into the residences with a diplomatic mission, really, that we also have to reconsider what we bring there as a selection and taking into account the diplomatic tensions and topics of today. Thank you very much, and if you have questions, of course, I'm well prepared to take them.
Dank u wel. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Professor. And now we're traveling back to Madrid, where Dr. Andrés Úbeda de los Cobos is waiting for us. He's Deputy Director for Conservation and Research at the Museo Nacional del Prado in Madrid. Profesor, doctor, es un honor tenerle con nosotros. Please, whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Bonjour. Ambassador here in Brussels. Undersecretary. Next slide, please. Next. Yeah. The Museo Nacional del Prado, the Museo del Prado is a national institution. That means, in our point of view, that it has to be spread all over the world. If we have more than 3,000 objects of art, works of art out of the museum, mainly in Spain, but also in abroad. Next, please. Yes, you can see that here in this map of Spain, the Prado is all around Spain, and if we go to the next slide, please. Yeah. We see here that the Prado is also all over the world, as I have said before. I want to talk about Brussels. As you see here and in the next photograph, and the next one, please. Yes, you can see there the Brussels with 18 paintings. In Brussels, we have only paintings. That is the fourth country in number of works of art from the Prado. The one on the left, the long column, is Buenos Aires. Please, the next slide. Yes. The second one, red arrow, is, I think, London, yes, and the third one, the red one, the biggest deposit of the Prado is Paris. So the works of art that have the Museo del Prado have in Brussels are important in terms of quantity and also in quality. Please, next. What have we in Brussels? Well, 18 paintings, as I have already said, and as you can see in the right, our works of art are mainly religious paintings. I don't see from here very well, but I think it's, thank you very much, 26% religious paintings. Then the second is landscape and vedute, 21%. 5 is allegories, 16 portraits and traditional customs. Then copies with 16%, 5% flowers, and 11% ancient Rome. Our paintings there in Brussels were taken to there then in 3 different trips. 2 of them in 1928 and the third one in 1970. This is very important. This is very, very important for some reasons I want to say later. Please, next. What kind of paintings we have can we find in Brussels? And this is the first question. The second one is this the best collection we can provide? Well, the first conclusion, looking very closely to these 18 paintings, is that the Prado has, in general terms, a very good collection in Brussels. We can show some examples. For example, this huge painting, painted in Naples in around 1638 by 2 different artists, Viviano Codazzi and Domenico Gargiulo. It's a huge painting, as I have said. This and the next one, please. That used to be a series of 4 paintings. There are still 3 of them. The 4th one is lost. Next, please. About tradition, about customs of the ancient Rome. All these paintings are very good paintings. If they were in Madrid, they were probably hung in the Prado, and they used to belong, and they were made for, next please, to the Royal Palace of the Buen Retiro. That for those that know Madrid, is very, very close to the center, very close to the Prado. The current main building of the Prado is in the corner, right down corner, in what you see at the back. Also, for those that know Madrid, are the first idea for the current gardens of the Retiro that used to belong to this royal palace. This was the most important commission made for Philip IV, and probably the most important commission made in Europe during the 17th century, the decoration of this new royal palace. Most of the very best paintings in the Prado now, please, next one, come from this royal commission for this royal palace of the Buen Retiro. For example, this one by Velasco, the Surrender of Breda. So we are speaking about 2 wonderful paintings in terms of quality, but also in terms of historical importance. we go ahead. Next, please. How can we improve this collection in Brussels? What can do the Prado to improve this collection? Well, there are many very talented, even in this room, very many talented people that is every single day of their lives thinking about all these problems. So I don't want to be the first of the class today and to say something that is not probably very convenient, but I want to think with you, to share some quick ideas. For example, the next one, this painting is a painting by Carlo Maratta. It's a very well-known artist of late 17th century, early 18th century. This painting arrived in Brussels in this first trip I have speaking about already in 1928. Next one, please. There is another painting, the couple, that was made to be seen together to the one that is currently in Brussels. The question is why this painting didn't go, these two paintings were together to Brussels. The reason is, the answer is because the second one, the one you have in the right image, was in that moment in 1928 in Barcelona in another deposit there. So the people who thought that to take this painting to Brussels was a very good idea. I share this opinion. This is a very good idea. It was a very good idea. Couldn't take both painting because the other one was in Barcelona. So there are in some occasions paintings that we have only one sample in Brussels that perhaps we can take the whole series, in this case two paintings, but in other examples there are even more, to one venue. It's possible to take them to Brussels or to any other embassy. Please, next one. During the 60s, in 1960, as I have already said, there was taken some paintings, a group of 3 paintings to Brussels. This third trip was the 3 paintings that you have now in the image. One copy of a painting by Van Dyck, by an anonymous artist, and 2 others by 2 copies by an anonymous artist from originals by Velasco. I think again that this was a very good idea to take together these three copies. I think is very suitable to have them in Brussels. But next one, there are many other possibilities that we can explore together. The Minister of Foreign Affairs and the cultural institutions in Spain. For example, this one, the one in the left, is a copy now in Granada, in the Fine Arts Museum in Granada. They don't want it, and this is in the storage room. It's a wonderful copy from the painting you have in the right by Rubens. I don't know if this battle could be a convenient image for an embassy. This is one subject matter that we have to explore and discuss together. But in any case, the copy is marvelous. It's very dark in the image because it needs urgently a restoration. The varnish is very yellow, the painting is very dirty, but in any case, it is a very, very good painting. And the last one, I think, yes. The last one is this painting, also it belongs to the Prado, but it's deposited in one regional museum. They don't want it, and this is in the storage room. Perhaps we can explore the possibility to think together again. Think together some paintings in the Prado that are exploring Belgian subject matters that could think about the relation, about the diplomatic relations between the two countries. Well, that's are some quick, as I have said, some quick ideas about the future. We know very well the past, not so well the future. That it's possible to carry on together. And just thank you for the collaboration. Thank you for the two institutions, the two embassies, Ambassador, and the two teams of the two embassies that has been extraordinarily polite. And thank you for your patience because I think I have arrived late to every deadline. And thank you very much. And nothing else. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation. In fact, I think you'll be able to see, hang on, participants and people who are following the webinar, because you'll be able to visit digitally both residences, and you'll be able to contemplate these 18 pieces of art that are on loan from El Prado here at the residence. We also have loans from Museo Nacional Centro de Arte Reina Sofía, and I think I forgot to mention that here the tapestry is a loan from Patrimonio Nacional, who is the equivalent of the Kirk IRPA in Belgium. So now we are going into the fourth, section of this webinar, and we've been sort of talking about art more in the past, in the present as well, but in terms of pieces, actual pieces, more referring to the past. Now we're going to go into present and future, because we have with us contemporary artists that have worked with both embassies, with specific examples, and we're going to answer this broad question of whether the embassy can be a challenging venue for an artist. And to start, we have in Madrid, Esther Pizarro and Olimpia Velasco, who are the two artists responsible for the fresque, this mural on the wall of the Chancery of the Embassy of Spain that we'll go into. And then we have here in Brussels, Philip Aguirre, the author of Exodus. But before we do that, I would like to show you, before we go to Esther Pizarro and Olimpia Velasco, these two artists, because we're having some sound issues, rather than loading the video and sharing it with you, we are dropping a link on Zoom. You have to click on it, and this will show you about a 2-minute video that shows you the making of, as it were, of the mural at the Chancery of Spain. Please enjoy the video and come back to us in 2 minutes. Thank you. Well, I hope you were able to view the video correctly, and now we will go to Madrid, to the Belgian embassy. I cannot help but remember, actually, I was there the summer that you came last year, Esther and Olimpia. You, in the midst of the pandemic, you worked so hard. You were wonderful. In fact, this is I know you're going to correct me because I said mural. It's a pictorial, sculptural installation, beautiful sculptures by Esther Pizarro and a wonderful painting by Olimpia. So you have the word, Olimpia and Esther. It's wonderful to see you. And please tell us about your experience with Efecto Mariposa, butterfly effect.
Thank you very much for inviting us to this interesting webinar. We think it is important for artists to have the opportunity to present our work at this kind of meeting, because we can give our point of view about contemporary art and culture at the present moment. Esther and I are two visual artists that work independently and that have joined to do this project together. Esther works mainly in a three-dimensional way. Sculptures, installation, and public art projects are part of her artistic language. Her concept is related to mobility maps, nature cartographies, and data visualization. In my case, I work with drawing, painting, and installation, and my artistic concept is related to nature and the human being from a nomadic thought as a radicant, and from a human perspective. Butterfly effect is the result of a specific collaboration between us. The flapping of a butterfly's wings can be felt on the other side of the world. This Chinese proverb was the inspiration for the conceptual development of the project. Small changes can lead to a totally unexpected and divergent consequences, generating an considerable effect in the medium and long term. Edward Lorenz, mathematician and meteorologist, relate on this Chinese proverb and on the chaos theory to postulate the butterfly effect. According to this theory, apparently dissociated action would lead to a completely unpredictable consequences. Chaos theory and butterfly effect would allow us to describe the behavior of nature and its fragile relationship with sustainability of finite resources in the era of the Anthropocene. The action that mankind takes from now on will have serious consequences on the sustainability of our green planet. Climate warming, desertification, pollution, depletion of resources, etc. Butterfly Effect is an artistic installation that invites the viewer to think on the fragile balance that exists between nature and the footprints that humans have on its flora and fauna. The intervention focuses on three elements: the tree, the person, and the butterfly. The tree symbolizes the life cycle. It constitutes one of the great cultural symbols of humanity and collective imagination. A tree is never still. It produces movement, sometimes quick, sometimes slow. Its branches reach skyward, both physically and spiritually. We have represented the human being as a woman to reinforce the belief that men and women should have the same rights and opportunities. The woman is sticking her head inside the tree trunk, representing the merging of the individual with the environment. We wanted to play with the idea that, like the roots of trees, human roots are in nature. We are part of nature. Finally, the butterfly alludes to transformation, change, and resilience. It affects those small actions that, together, can cause great changes that promote a sustainable balance between human beings and their environment. In a subtle nod to Brussels, the wings of the butterflies reproduce its urban layout. The city's imprint appears in the fragile wings of the butterfly, which, with its flight, reunites the urban with the natural, like the tree do too. Additionally, We would like to share with you the creative process of the project as well as its technical characteristics. Any artistic project starts in the ideation phase. In our case, it was work together, Olimpia from Mallorca and myself from Madrid. The challenge consisting in finding a concept according to the code and a formalization in which each one will contribute with their own artistic language within an integrating perspective. The next step was the work at the studio. It was in charge of preparing the pictorial part. Due to the dimension of the mural and the fact that projecting the drawing was impossible because of the physical situation of the wall at the embassy, I made a stencil on paper with the real dimension to transfer the figure and the human and the tree to the wall. I also prepared the necessary materials and paint mixtures in order to have everything ready to be able to do it in a week. I had to do the design and production of the butterflies, the sculptural part of the project. 3 models developed in 3 sizes generated a total of 31 butterflies. A vector drawing allowed them to be laser cut in iron, 2.5 millimeters thick. Later, they were given a primer and a red lacquer for outdoors. It was important to prepare the project as advanced as possible from our studio so that its execution and assembly will be as fast as possible in Brussels. Once at the Embassy of Spain in Brussels, we faced the biggest challenge, shaping our project on site. For 6 intense days, we were working together with 2 support assistants, painting the mural and installing the butterfly in their corresponding places. Sun, rain, cold, and heat accompanied us in the execution of the almost 130 square meters that make up the butterfly effect installation. To conclude, we would like to share a reflection. The creation of a wall against climate change award organized by the Spanish Embassy in collaboration with the city of Brussels has opened a window for artists and cultural professionals to explore critical artistic practice and the intersection of art and environment. As we all know, artists and cultural practitioners around the world are launching initiatives and rethinking responses to environmental change and climate crisis. Now, more than ever, we need to help arts and culture to respond to these issues that are being debated politically, often without the involvement of affected parties. It will be very important that this window remains open, creating an opportunity that encourages us to change our habits by introducing the perspectives that art and culture can give. To this end, it will be interesting and necessary to create, through the embassies, an international support program between artists and cultural professionals to work at the intersection of art, environmental change, and climate crisis, like, for example, the one that Goethe Institute has been developing since 2018. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Esther Pizarro and Olimpia Velasco. A true pleasure. I just remind you all that this was an open call that we organized with the city of Brussels, and Esther and Olimpia were chosen. They had a collective proposal, as they explained, amongst 107 different artists from throughout the world. And now we are traveling back to Belgium, to Brussels, to the Spanish residence, and we have the pleasure and the honor to have with us Philip Aguirre, who is the contemporary artist of the piece Exodus, Lightbox, based on an in-situ installation in 1999 in Senegal, and which is currently installed at the Embassy of Belgium in Madrid since 2013. So, Philip, please approach, and I will leave the podium with this question, if I may. Your roots seem to be Spanish. Aguirre is a very Basque name, a Spanish name. So do you think, do you have a connection still with the Basque country, with Spain? And does that have an effect on your work? Thank you so much for being with us, Philip.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody, madam. I'm very happy to be here and to show you some of my work. Yes, the history of my family and the relation with the Basque country and Spain is very important for me as an artist. My father is one of the Niños de la Guerra, which one of the kids of the war in English. So he escaped from Bilbao in 1937 and came in Belgium, and we still are here in Belgium. So that's an important fact for me as an artist and as a human being. I start with this image. So migration always, it's over 30 years I work about migration. And this is El País Semanal from 1997 with photos of Sebastião Salgado. And at that moment, the migration route was from let's say, Tanger to the Andalusian coast with all the little boats, the pateras. That, can I have the next slide, please? I also saw, I work a lot with images from the press, journals, and I saw a photo of a drowning man on a beach near Tarifa, and I thought, yeah, we have the man from Cro-Magnon, historical image, and so I made a monument for the man of Tarifa. This photo, a World Press winning photo from a man, a photographer from Algeciras, who works together with the association Algeciras Acoge. I went to visit them in Algeciras, and they take care of the refugees arriving at the beach. And this photo means so much for me. It's a Spanish soldier taking care of a refugee on the beach. He's warming up the refugee. And then, if I can have the next, no, there is one missing photo. Maybe, yeah. I made a sculpture of this image, but maybe it comes later. Yeah. But I can go on with this image. This one, and then there is a sculpture I made out of this image. But don't care. We will go back to the boat. Yeah. Some years later, I was working already for years in Senegal with a Senegalese artist, and in the 2005, the migration route started from Senegal to the Canarian Islands because the Mediterranean coast was closed. So there thousands of people came with those Senegalese fishers' boats to the Canarian Islands. I was working there in the fisher town of Hambourg, which is a very important fisher town, and the fishermen make themselves the boat and also do the travel to the Canarian Islands. So I was asked in Ostende for the Beaufort Triennial to make a work about the sea, and I immediately knew what I wanted to do. So next, please. I worked with these fishermen that also smuggled people to the Canarian Islands, and I asked them to collaborate with me to make a monument to put in Senegal and on the Belgian coast. If we can go. Here you see the wharf on the beach. It took 3 months to make a monument, and we can go farther. And then you see the monument on the Belgian coast in the port of Newport. It will now be installed this year in the port of Antwerp, definitely, which is good news. It's a lot of history about this work. I can talk hours of this, but it's about migration and exodus and so on. The next, please. yeah. Mare Nostrum. So I think 2 years ago there was another message of alarm message from the people from Algeciras Acoge that it was a disaster in the Strait of Gibraltar. So I made this drawing, the Mare Nostrum. And the next, please. Yeah, an embassy is a public space, and for me as an artist, working for a public space or in a public space is so important. I think in the 15th century you worked for a church, now we have other buildings we work for. And I was invited in Cameroon by an art institute to do something in public space, and I chose this natural well in Via Miseria, how do you say, Bidonville, and can I go, yeah, and the well is in a neighborhood, a very poor neighborhood, and I saw in the landscape, if I can see the next image, yeah, in the landscape I saw like a theater, and I thought I can combine the well with a theater, and so create with a washing place, lavador, to create a public space around that natural well. And now it's one of the, maybe the only clean square in the city of Douala, which has like 5 million of inhabitants. We can go further. Yeah, that's the maquette. And then the next, please. There you see the results. So it's, for me, it's a sculpture, but it's also, it's architecture, it's public space. And that means a lot for me as an artist to work like this. Maybe the next, it's a detail. And there you see the colors of Africa. So the work is only complete when it's used. And it's used every day by the kids, the families, and so on. The next, please. This is, for me, a very important monument, memorial. I was asked by the Flemish government to create a Holocaust monument in Mechelen, Malinas, in the Caserne d'Aussin, where all the trains started to Auschwitz. Like 24,000 people were transported from that place. So they asked me to create a monument, and this, it's also a too long story to tell you, but the image came from histories I read about the razzias the Germans and also Belgian police did in Jewish families. And they always came at breakfast time in the morning. And so this is a family under a table, and the table is put on for the breakfast. Yeah, maybe next time we come to the Exodus. The Exodus, which is in the embassy in Madrid. I made an installation in Senegal, near the beach. The beach is at 200 meters. And at the moment, at that moment, it's in 97, I think, 98. And just after the Rwanda genocide, and also images in the press, people, refugees through the Bruce and all the landscape. And I was thinking, how can I make a work about this? And then there on the beach, I found hundreds of beach slippers, broken beach slippers, sandals, which everybody use in Africa. They come with boats from China, and then, okay, and when they are broken, people throw it away. They come into the river, but they float, so they come back from the sea on the beach. So I cleaned during a week the beach of Joal, and I made this installation, and then a photo, and this photo is now the lightbox in the Embassy of Madrid. And for me, it's an important story about these migration situations, and also happy to come back a little in Spain. And maybe is there a next year? Yeah, this is I wanted to show in the beginning. This is that's the end of the cyclist. It's the boat Havana in 37. My father is not on the picture, but it shows children on their way to France from Bilbao. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dank u wel. Philip, thank you so much. Now we begin the synthesis part of this webinar. And this synthesis comes about, it couldn't be any other way, with the two ambassadors who are hosting us today. The ambassador of the Kingdom of Belgium to the Kingdom of Spain, Gerard Cox, and the ambassador of the Kingdom of Spain to the Kingdom of Belgium, Beatriz La Rocha Palma. And we have asked them, like we have a series of questions throughout the webinar, and we have asked both ambassadors to answer this apparently naive question, but as we've seen with Philip's and Esther's and Olimpia's presentation and the previous presentations, we know it's not so naive. And the question is, can art change the world? So it is our honor to please ask Ambassador Cox to take the floor all the way from the Palacete Marqués de Rafal. Thank you, Ambassador.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And Undersecretary, Secretary General, Ambassador Diabea, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Let me start by saying how pleased I am on this 100th anniversary of our embassies to be hosting this event together with our Spanish colleagues in Brussels. As we are concluding this seminar, I would like to thank the previous speakers who have given a full picture of the interaction between art and heritage on the one hand and diplomacy on the other. As most has been said, I will only highlight a few things from my perspective. That of a practitioner and a privileged one as I live and work surrounded by art. I will make 3 points. First, art and heritage as cultural ambassadors. I make this claim with some humility. Last Monday, I was invited to the opening of the René Magritte exhibition at Thyssen Museum in Madrid. In terms of promoting the image of my country, this has much more impact than what we are able to do. But we have this niche where we use art in a diplomatic setting. As ambassadors, we represent our countries. It is my job to present Belgium to the Spanish public. These days, we increasingly use social media for our branding, but this only generates fleeting impressions. Art, by contrast, is lasting. It reflects a deeper sense of our country through the historical works we showcase in the residence, the old art, and the contemporary collection the Chancellery, and yes, the interaction between the two. We try to bring across a certain image of our country, of Belgium. An image that goes beyond the cliches. This sometimes makes for surprising effects. How did we go from the stiff colors of Rubens' workshop to the surrealism of Marcel Broodhaas? And the work by Broodhaas looks over my shoulder in my office, reminding me that as a good Belgian, I should not take myself too seriously. Promoting my country's image is not a one-way street, which brings me to my second point. Art as a bridge between people. Sometimes, quite literally, as you can see behind me on the left, in the painting of Antwerp across the river Scheldt. You see the bridge connecting the two, to the city of Antwerp. Historically, and this is reflected in the paintings and tapestry in this residence, we have this close connection between Belgium and Spain. Today, this is still very relevant and a major factor in our bilateral relationship. We get each other. In this, we are lucky in Madrid to have the Mol Institute and the Real Fábrica de Tapices, who help us translate our Flemish, in a historical sense, art into Spanish. Both institutes were very helpful in putting together a virtual tour of the residence, which you will see in a moment. Lastly, as was pointed out earlier, art is not the same as decoration. It is true, and I speak from personal experience, that you can have stimulating discussions around artworks. It is equally true that sometimes we should let those works speak for themselves. An image, as the saying goes, is worth 1,000 words. Art has the power to ask questions. Difficult questions sometimes, as in the case of Philip Aguirre's exhibit, as we just saw. Equally, meaning is not set in stone. I'm sure my successors will have very different conversations than I around the work in the embassy. I'd like to conclude with an anecdote about one of my favorite artists. When I was Consul General in Jerusalem about 10 years ago, I had work by Belgian artist Ponomarenko in my office. Ponomarenko, who passed away a few years ago, used to make elaborate designs for, amongst other things, airplanes. Airplanes that could not fly. Asked about this, the artist replied that there was no point in making planes that could fly, because they already exist. As René Magritte would say, ceci n'est pas un avion. This is not an airplane. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. And now we have the honor to ask our hostess, Beatriz La Rocha Palma, to please address the webinar. Thank you, Ambassador.
Thank you very much for your words, dear Ambassador Cox. Hilaire Bidank, merci beaucoup, muchas gracias. My deepest thanks to Under Secretary Mr. Luis Cuesta Civis, muchas gracias, querido subsecretario, and to Mrs. Teodora Gentis, and to all those in both ministries and embassies who have made this webinar possible. Many thanks to all the speakers. Their excellent interventions have offered a testimony of the intensity, diversity, and richness of the links that Spain and Belgium have maintained for almost 5 centuries, especially through art, heritage, and diplomacy. From the outset, relations between Belgians and Spaniards had been characterized by a mutual interest, even curiosity, in getting to know each other better. Proof of this are the ancestral academic relations between our countries, which date back to the founding of the first university in the Netherlands, the University of Leuven. According to records, this university already had a Spanish student, Alfonso de Loes, from León, as early as 1444. After the union of the Crown of Spain with the Duchy of Burgundy, in the figure of Charles of Ghent, the number of Spaniards who traveled to study in these lands increased considerably, and soon we can also find Spanish professors in Leuven, such as the great humanist Juan Luis Vives, who lived and taught there between 1513 and 1523. The interest in intensifying reciprocal knowledge has increased since then, in particular during the last century, which we commemorate this year on the occasion of the elevation of the 2 diplomatic legations, Belgian and Spanish, to the rank of embassies in January 1921. Today, Belgium has a strong and dynamic community of Hispanists thanks to the passion and fantastic work of teachers, professors, researchers, and students at the school and at the 7 Belgian universities offering undergraduate or postgraduate studies in Spanish language and literature. It is impossible to visit a Belgian museum that doesn't have at least one exhibition or collection of Spanish art. It is also almost impossible to find a Belgian citizen who hasn't visited our country or who doesn't have a personal link with Spain. In this embassy, we refer with the affectionate term Hispano-Belgas to those millions of Belgian and Spanish people who have been within the community of mutual interests and affections through politics, diplomacy, trade, and indeed art and heritage. This year's commemorations, such as today's webinar, offer us an opportunity to open the doors of the Chancellery and the residence of this embassy to the general public and to showcase its artistic and cultural heritage. During the oncoming weekend of the Brussels Heritage Days, more than 1,000 people have already registered to visit these buildings, exhausting the available places. Today, we are presenting a pilot project of the Spanish Ministry of Foreign Affairs, European Union and Cooperation, a virtual visit of this residence in 3 dimensions, which will allow many more people to visit and to learn more about its history and artworks and cultural assets. As we wander through its rooms and halls, we will remember the historical figure of the first ambassador who lived here, Rodrigo de Saavedra y Vinet, segundo Marqués de Villalobar, known as the defender of Belgians, le défenseur des Belges, for his important diplomatic and humanitarian work during the First World War. This year, we have also paid tribute to the exemplary reception given by Belgian society to the so-called Niños de la Guerra. Belgium has been a host country for the Spanish exile, personified in historical references such as Francesc Ferrer i Guàrdia or the poet and diplomat Josep Carner, known as the Prince of Catalan Letters, posted as a diplomatic official in this embassy. Official residences of Belgium and Spain, that is to say, El Palacete del Marqués de Rafal in Madrid, and this residence, Embajador Marqués de Villalobar, from which I am speaking, had been, and continue to be, the concrete expression of the huge relationship between art, heritage, and diplomacy. Tapestries, carpets, paintings, and other works of art are the expression of our shared history. The millions of Belgians who visit Spain every year know that our country combines tradition and modernity and shares with Belgium European principles and an active multilateralism in defense of the rule of law and human rights. These values are also shared with Belgian society through the large Spanish community resident in this country. Almost every city in Belgium has an association linked to the Spanish heritage. Heritage is one of the best ways to express our present and to project ourselves into the future. I want you to enjoy the virtual tour of our residence, and thank you very much.
And now we will start the virtual tour of the official residence of the Embassy of Spain. Residencia Embajador Marqués de Villalobar here in Brussels. But before we do so, I'm going to invite Mr. Elliot Hillert, who is the managing partner at Lunaus, your digital hub, and founder of Panorama. Thank you, Elliot. In fact, both embassies have used the same technology that Elliot will explain to us so we understand the full capacities of this device, of this 3D tool, which is used also by museums and at the service of heritage. So please listen to Elliot's presentation, and then we will also drop a link for you to click on. And there are three, if I'm not mistaken, 3 different links for 3 different languages, because you will be directed to the website of the Embassy of Spain, the official website, and there are 3 different language versions. And in fact, this is the premiere. We are launching today this pilot program that the ministry, as the ambassador said, has been working on for months with institutions, with art historians like Laurent Stevens, who did a special research, etc. It's been the fruit of a very intensive work and collaboration with different institutions, an expression, a practical example of what we've been discussing here, the work and collaboration between diplomats, artists, art curators, museums, etc. So please bear with us, and first let us listen to Elliot, who has been working with us in developing this technology and who will tell you more in detail how you can enjoy it. Now, you'll only enjoy a short version. We will ask you when we move to the showcase to actually hit the automatic play button so it can just play automatically and give a 3-minute visit, because you could spend literally hours. There is a lot of information. There's a lot of what we call the digital tags, a lot of research behind it that explains every single detail, every single work of art. So we will ask you for today, just a teaser, the showcase will be available here and after, so you can enjoy it at your leisure, and you will also have the option to do it with music or without music. And the music is actually played by pianist Cristina Lucio Villegas. It's a march that was composed for Ambassador Villalobar, that has been evoked here by Mrs. Gensis, by Ambassador Beatriz La Rocha. And La Marcha Olé Caballero was composed in honor of Villalobar, who, when he died here, was offered honors of state honors in show of appreciation from the Belgian people. So without further ado, Elliot, give us, in a nutshell, explain to us the technology we're going to see right now. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you. Welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, dear Ambassador Sergi, for having me. So we at Lunaus, we are a digital hub providing digital solutions by combining different expertises. So first of all, we are developers, more precisely web developers, software developers, but we produce also multimedia content such as 3D visualization, 360 visualization, in order to make virtual reality experiences or augmented reality experiences. And the third expertise is digital marketing. So because we have to measure online behavior in order to improve our web experiences. And it's by combining those expertises that we can have a holistic approach in developing immersive web experiences. So we use a lot of different techniques in order to develop web experiences or immersive web experiences, but it's not the scope today to elaborate every technique. So I will discuss briefly one of those techniques, and it's 3D scanning. So what is 3D scanning? It's the digitalization of a physical entity. So for example, a building, an architectural space, inside, outside, a room, etc. So it's done by infrared laser beams who gather or generate a volumetric data, dimensions, and an overall structure of a space. And on the other hand, we use 360 photography. And when we merge those two types of data together, we get an identical representation of the reality, or we call it a digital twin of a space. So we use this 3D scanning technique for a lot of different industries, and the purposes are really diverse. So first of all, the main industry where we use 3D scanning is the construction, engineering, and architecture industry. So it enables architects and engineers to virtually prepare construction projects or to discover defaults in an early stage. We have also more precise measurements instead of measuring by hands, of course. It goes much faster. On the other hand, it gives the possibility to engineers and architects to collaborate and to follow up construction projects at a distance without losing time and money to come on site. Another big industry where we use a lot of 3D scanning is, of course, art and culture. So over the past years, we've done a lot of 3D scans of exhibitions to make a digital twin of that exhibition in order for museums and exhibition halls, art galleries to have a digital archive. And so we can eternalize an exhibition, of course, certainly for temporary exhibitions. So on the other hand, it gives the possibility for museums and exhibition centers to reach and attract an international audience. But also we have learned during the past, by doing a lot of scans or virtual exhibitions, that it enhances democracy and social cohesion, because we can reach people that are in the margins of society. For example, people with financial constraints or people with a handicap, we can reach them and they can still discover art and culture. And we have also learned that a virtual exhibition lowers the threshold for people to discover art and to consume culture. At another level, we do 3D scanning for the preservation of cultural heritage and patrimony. So we started with this in the company after the terrible incident of when the Notre Dame de Paris has burned. So if we would have scanned this cathedral, this wonderful place in 3D, we first of all, people could still discover this wonderful piece of heritage virtually. But secondly, and most importantly, we could reconstruct it in its original state because we have all the volumetric data, dimensions, and the overall structure. And we have a clear understanding of the materials and textures. So thank you for listening, and I let you enjoy the virtual tour of the Embassy of Spain in Brussels. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I hope you were able to enjoy the virtual tour. Because of time, as I said, we can spend hours, and I hope you do at your own leisure. And now I would like to share with you, on behalf of the Belgian Embassy in Madrid, the wonderful tour they've also prepared of the residence Palacete Marqués de Rafal. You will also find a link on your Zoom that you can just click to have the best quality video, just in case, and to guide you, and so that we're all on the same timing. We're also filming the screen here, but of course, we want you to have the best optimal experience, so you should click directly. And then I'll see you again before we close the webinar. We'll run 5 minutes late because we started 5 minutes late, so we can address at least 1 or 2 questions we've received. Thank you, and enjoy the virtual tour of the Belgian residence in Madrid. Thank you. Thank you so much. And now you've had a quick visit of the two residences, and we're about to close, but we have one question I'd like to, from one of the participants, which is the following. What is the possibility for a contemporary artist to have some works exhibited temporarily into his or her embassy on the occasion of, for example, a diplomatic or economic mission? This person says, I've never been approached as a sculptress, although my works have been sold in Belgium and in Spain and are recognized. What do you recommend me to do? So I would like to ask perhaps in Madrid, Ramon and Maria, if you can, or Maria, if you can quickly take the floor and very shortly maybe give information where what can artists do, where do they go to find out about this, and perhaps Ilse can also give here in Brussels a little guidance to artists who are willing to do what Philip Aguirre or Esther Pizarro or Olimpia have done. So Madrid, can you please, Ramon, or if someone is on standby, take that question? Thank you so much.
Yes, hello. I would like to tell you, well, it's not a practice that has been done very commonly, just to loan or to exhibit artwork like that. I think my advice would be to go to the Dirección General de Relaciones Culturales of the Ministry, who takes care of the exhibitions that are toured all over the world in our cultural centers, and just propose what you have to, what you would like to have exhibited in a special. I think more than just exhibiting a piece of art for a specific event. I think it is more important than to organize an exhibition or to maybe create an artwork for a specific event. We do that. I was involved with that many years ago, and I think it has been even improved. So my advice would be to go to see the person responsible for art exhibitions in our embassies and cultural centers, and just propose what you have in mind. That would be my advice there. And definitely, I think it would be very important to have artists involved in knowing that also their art is not just through commercial channels, that they can promote it, but also as the Ministry of Foreign Affairs involved in cultural relationships as well abroad, would be a very good tool for them to let their art be known abroad.
Thank you so much, Ramon. And now, please, Ilse, would you take that question and give us some information from your part? Thank you.
Yes, also thank you from my side for this question. And I think what Ramon was saying was very accurate. And I think we always work with certain projects and with the diplomatic movement and so on. So with renovations or new constructions. But of course, there is also the missions of the royal family, for example, and economical missions. But I would suggest also to follow us on the social media, Belgium Art and Diplomacy, and also our website. You found our references, email addresses, and you can always contact us with a certain question, and we will examine this, yes, as best as we can. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for your patience. And indeed, we're public institutions, so of course we do, we're not like a private gallery. There's open calls, there's very regulated processes. We gave the example of the open call, or there are like diplomatic missions or economic missions. So the advice, as the colleague said, is go to the websites. You can find on the it was already said, they have the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Belgium has a specific actually rubrique, item on the website on this. You can go to the Ministry of Culture in Spain. You can go to our own website at the embassy, the Spain Culture. We have an open call every year that's called Open Locket in Dutch, Guichet Ouvert, Ventanilla Abierta. You can go to the Director General for Cultural Relations and Scientific Relations, as Ramon mentioned, etc., etc. So again, thank you all. On behalf of Ambassador Cox and Ambassador La Rocha, I'm very happy to again close this webinar. Thank you all for your participation, for all those who've been following us. To our colleagues in Madrid, thank you so much for the excellent collaboration. We look forward to the rest of the year and to 500 years more, right, Ambassador? So thank you so much. Tot ziens. Au revoir. Hasta pronto. Thank you. Adios.